This is the End of the Road podcast with your host, Michael Coco. Exploring the horizons we never touch because we're already there.
Welcome, and thanks for listening. Tonight we're off to Minneapolis with the author and Oneironaut, David Kahn. We're going to be talking about his latest book, The Oneironaut's Odyssey, which is a wonderful portal to the land of lucid dreams. And his book is really chock full of all the trappings of a collective unconsciousness, the archetypes, the ancient wisdom, and encounters with the numinous. And for me, it points to the wonder of dreams and how they connect us, perhaps in a way that one person's dreaming life might be the voice inside another's conscious life in a strange and mysterious way. But without further ado, here's the Oneironaut's Odyssey with David Kahn. Well, Dave, it's amazing all the archetypes you have found in your dreams. I mean, it's inspiring. I mean, I'm going back and looking at my old dreams and saying, well, I'm trying to find archetypes like you've done in your book. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think everybody has them, but like when you're somebody like me that's been dreaming your whole life, like multiple dreams every night, it's just become such an interest that I've learned to recognize them just through them coming through, over so many decades at this point.
Yeah. Is it a process that after you have written down the dream, that then you go back and you sort of look for archetypes, or how do archetypes sort of appear in your dreams? Or how do you work with archetypes in dreams? Maybe that's the better question.
Yeah, I mean, it's different ways. I mean, sometimes I recognize them, like especially in a lucid dream, I might recognize it as it's happening. Especially like the sacred geometry that's shown up in lucid dreams. I've been shown, and I usually recognize it on the spot. But a lot of other times, it's been after the fact. Sometimes long after the fact, when I've gone back and realized, like I'll see like a story, a myth, whatever, and realize that aligns with this dream I had way back when, or even multiple dreams. And that's kind of where like this book came from, is when I started to recognize that. And the concept isn't new. I mean, Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell and many other dream workers have connected these universal themes and archetypes and myths with dreaming. I just made the book more through the lens of lucid dreaming.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's so interesting. So what do archetypes sort of add to your lucid dreaming experience? And why is it a new language, or is it a new connection, or how do you feel, or is it a connection to the past, or all the above?
Well, I see it as these archetypes as sort of like the level at which everything is connected. Like we all have our own individual lives or individual stories, but if you look at the patterns, they're very similar. For example, like in movies, you'll see they often follow the hero's journey, right? So whether it's The Wizard of Oz or The Karate Kid or The Matrix, they pretty much follow a similar pattern, even though the stories are all very individual. It's much the same with dreams, where you could find, we're all having similar human experiences, very individual lives, but we all experience joy and pain and birth and death and all the things in between. And so the archetypes are sort of at that more universal level. And then everything else on top of it is just, what we add in our personal lives.
Yeah. So it's kind of, so you'd be aligned. You talked about Carl Jung, like a collective unconsciousness
Yes.
that we all share. And
Yes, that's kind of like the level of these dreams where, like, when I see these archetypes, I think of it, I didn't, when I was younger, I never really much studied Jung or any of this stuff, but it's interesting as because my dreaming is so intense that all of the dreams kind of led me to Jung and Joseph Campbell and many of these stories and myths and archetypes that I hadn't necessarily sought out to learn, but then did because I'm starting to see these patterns.
is there a difference in the archetypical experience in lucid dreams versus regular dreams?
Um, I think that for me they show up in both of them, but in lucid dreams they tend to be more intense and more direct. For example, in more standard dreams, I can look back and often see um, some of these themes, as I'm looking back in it. Whereas in a lucid dream, it's a little more front and center. Like take the geometry for example. In a regular dream, I might see the geometry more as woven into the scene of the dream. For example, fractal branching might be a tree or a river or roads or things like this. Whereas in a lucid dream, it might show up literally as, oh, here's a vortex, or here is the void, or something that's just much more um, direct, I guess, for lack of better words.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting about. Um, so the only part of the book that I mean I don't know if I've ever had geometry in a dream before. I was actually thinking about that like um it's interesting that I mean different, we are different in how we process things, but it seemed to be that was like a very important part for you. Do you have an understanding of sort of what that means, sort of at an archetypal level?
Yeah, and I would guess that you probably have had geometry in dreams, but if you were to notice it, it's probably more woven into the fabric of the dream itself. If you
Sure, sure.
make it part of the scenery. I did at the last Many Worlds of Lucid Dreaming conference. I presented on sacred geometry and lucid dreams because it was so common, and I found that it actually among lucid dreamers it's very common. And to me, it's kind of like just getting a lot more into those deeper layers. Like if sort of like peeling back the onion, like we're getting a little closer to the center here, where there's less difference from one thing to the next. It seems like that primordial um, substance of the universe, what everything is made of, the fractal nature of things for sure, the interconnectedness of everything. You see it a lot through geometry. It's almost
Yeah.
in many ways like beyond just the words. It's sort of like the feeling of it.
Yeah, no, and I know a lot of people have analogized like the psychedelic state to the dreaming state, and and seeing geometry and fractals is common in the psychedelic state. But even when I'm in the psychedelic state, I don't get the fractals and the geometry. That was just kind of interesting. Uh, but I was thinking I had a dream last night where there was maybe a triangle involved, but I don't know. It wasn't. It would have been very subtle, and that's the thing that I think it really. Um, I think that it's almost like you uh, honor the experience so much more, and then therefore the experience more comes alive. You create space for it, and maybe you can talk about sort of how you cultivate the dreaming experience and and how you get lucid, perhaps.
Okay. Yeah, for me, dreaming itself is something I just always remembered a lot of dreams. That's like even my earliest life memories is a dream and there on forward. And I started having lucid dreams when I was a kid and reading about them by the time I was a teenager. And then I started having a lot more lucid dreams. It was Stephen LeBerge back in the 80s when I first started to read about it. And in those days, I was like a lot of kids. I would just have fun with it. Flying was great, right? But
Right, right.
as I grew into an adult, I started realizing there's so much more you could do with this, and I started to do things like talk to the dream characters and ask them, what do you represent, or why are you here? What do you need from me? Or to ask for help with something, and you get the most interesting answers. But eventually that turned into asking or talking to the dream itself. Robert Wagner talks a lot about this in his books. And my way of doing it has been more often than not to just say to the dream when I'm lucid, show me what I need to see. And
Yeah.
I've done that dozens of times. And that's where I first started to notice the sacred geometry. I remember a dream where I said, show me what I need to see. And I saw this tornado drop down from the sky. And underneath it was this gigantic pine tree that was spinning, and they connected at a focal point. And I realized in the dream that this is what I'm seeing is this focal point. And it was like the image of a torus is what I realized upon waking up. And so I started to look more into that. And I just started seeing more and more of that type of thing appear after that dream. As far as like how I go about lucid dreaming, there are times where I actively try to have more lucid dreams, but not as much as I used to. I think I enjoyed them more when they find me. And they seem to be more intense and more intentional um, when I do. It's like now I allow the dream to show me whatever I need to see, including my level of consciousness within the dream. But I still love them when I have them, which is still fairly frequently.
Yeah. Do you do any of the prompting? I know there are some practices that people, during the day, you remind yourself, am I dreaming? Am I not dreaming? Those kind of prompts during the day. Do you find that anything sort of helps facilitate the experience of lucid dreams or the encounter, or is it just a gift, so to speak?
Well, certain things have helped. I think just being more mindful throughout the day has a tendency to
Yeah.
result in being more mindful when you're asleep. Also, the wake back to bed method does work. It's not something I do too often because it's just who wants to get up earlier than they have to, but it can be effective to get up during the night for a short period of time and going back to sleep. I also found some years ago I participated in a lucid dreaming study that was used for study for PTSD, and that experiment, one of the things we were supposed to do during the night was meditate, and I found that was definitely one of them that worked good for me. Like if I woke up during the night and sit up in bed and just meditate for 15 or 20 minutes and then go back to sleep, my lucid dreaming frequency increased quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes and I've had that experience too. Do you find that like different times of the night um sort of result in different types of dreams? Like just for an example, like I find that early on in the night, in the first few hours after I'm asleep, the dreams, are very sort of um not really visual as much as there's just sort of more energetic, maybe unconscious, and not, and then like sometimes then like around 3 there's sort of a point where I'm sort of more conscious. Sometimes I'm actually awake, and then when I go back to sleep, like between 4 and 7 or 4 and 6 or whatever, then it's very visual. And if I am going to have sort of any sort of lucid experience, it would be during that time period. Is that something that um, resonates with you at all, or anything in your studies or experience?
Yeah, I definitely noticed there's a difference in the type of dreams I have earlier in the night versus later. Of course, our REM cycles become more frequent and lengthier throughout the night, and tend to be in a lighter sleep in the morning hours before waking up. So that's when most people will remember their dreams, and certainly their lengthier dreams. But I often find that when I fall asleep, if I wake up an hour later, I've remembered a dream. So I tend to remember quickly, and then at various points through the night, I tend to find the dreams in the early night, of course, are shorter as the REM cycles are shorter, but the intensity of those dreams tends to be more for me. Like it's like whatever is in the dream is something from a deeper level of my consciousness, whereas some of my morning dreams, the content seems to be things that are still maybe unconscious, but not as far beneath the surface. They're things that have bubbled up closer to the surface, or are maybe just now popping through a little bit. So I'm definitely far more likely to have a lucid dream shortly before waking up than early in the night.
Yeah. You mentioned the study with PTSD. And this is kind of something that really resonates with me about the energy in dreams. Like some of my dreams aren't so much symbolic as just energetic almost, or the energy is a deep symbolism that I sort of haven't been able to, to work through perhaps, or it's just not, I don't know. I mean, I envy you, and it's inspiring that you can find the archetypes for this, but some of them I just have eluded me. And it's just kind of more like an energetic thing that's bizarre.
So when you say energy, do you mean like a physical energy that you see, or is it more of a feeling of the dream?
Oh, it's a feeling, like a consciousness shift energetically to a different type of consciousness. And I guess I'm almost more sensitive to that. Like different times of the night have different sorts of consciousness. Some of them are more what they would call, perhaps alpha state, where they're kind of more chill and relaxed, and then some of them are just bizarre, and there's kind of like a rhythm to them, an energetic rhythm that it seems to be almost an energetic rhythm that's going through me more so than a visual experience perhaps, and the experience. And then when that's done, it's almost like there's been a relief, some sort of relief perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, of course, dreams can show up in a lot of different ways. Visually is the most common, but it can be feeling or any of our senses or even just emotions. I definitely noticed that, what you're talking about as far as the difference of intensity at different times or energy levels. I think when you become lucid a lot, though, one of the things, or just even more mindful in life, I often will take on more of an observer role. So like I can notice when my energy is shifting and still sometimes just be aware of it. So that's almost like the awareness behind the consciousness doesn't change, but the energy or the scenery, as the case might be, does.
Yeah. Do different groups experience dreams differently? I mean, I think you've got a book out on an experience of different. Well, you mentioned PTSD, but gay, lesbian, trans communities. I think you have a publication on that. Is there? Have you noticed a different experience in different groups or things in the dream language or imagery?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, people will dream about their own experiences, and there's commonalities in this, and that really that book was really it is a PTSD book, but it's one that's sort of based on these people's personal type of experiences. Whereas, like somebody who's been to war, for example, and they might have dream content that aligns with that imagery, but getting down to that archetypal level, it's all trauma. And so there are similarities in all of it. Now, the symbolism that I found, and this was mostly with people in the LGBTQ community that are young people, and there's everything from that appears from family support or lack thereof, community support or lack thereof, bullying, physical concerns, and of course, all of these show up in dreams as they would for anybody who's experienced trauma or has reason to be fearful. Um, that was, I did find like some of the specific types of imagery that showed up repeatedly. What I found was a feeling of drowning or being trapped was common.
Yeah,
Symbolism,
that makes sense.
for the people in the trans community being misgendered or being called the wrong name appears commonly. A lot of people in that community suffer from dysphoria, so they may have dreams, either positive or negative, that align sort of with that, um, with what they're experiencing emotionally or even physically, um, as some of them transition. So it's been, I'd like to see that there was more positive dreams, but they tend to be negative. But there are some that turned out positive, which tends to be more as these people grew into adulthood. Maybe they found communities, so they had maybe chosen families. Maybe they had more control over their health care than they did. Maybe they were no longer part of certain communities that weren't accepting of them.
Yeah, no, it's do you have experiences, and I don't want to use, it's kind of analogous to healing in your dreams, where you've worked with the dreams to address any issue, and
As far as me, my experience in using
yeah,
dreams.
or you could talk about the your work with the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, encourage people to look at their own dreams, and to learn just about dream work can be helpful because it's so personalized. As far as my ability to do anything with it, it's been more of the best advice that I've kind of learned through this whole process is, is to for people to seek out somebody that they can trust, because there's not a one answer fits all. Everybody's in a different situation. For example, if somebody is younger and they've always been able to trust their parents have always had their back, then I think you need to go with that and trust that you're okay to come out to them or to talk to them about these things. If that's not been the case, then maybe you need to find another family member or friend or somebody to come out to first, where you've got some kind of support. So that's more. I still don't really have all the answers to it. It's just been more of an understanding better of some of the of what these people have experienced themselves.
Yeah. Do any of the dreams that you mentioned in the book as an archetype, once you've experienced the dream and recognized it as an archetype, is there sort of an ongoing practice you have with the dream? And I mean, you seem very mindful, and you seem to have a meditative practice. Is it something that you you honor and work with and feel, during the day, as or how do you work with these archetypes? I mean, I think a lot of them are beautiful, and they're collective, but what because I know Jungian analysis uses dreams, obviously, but
Yeah.
yeah, so I just was wondering if you have any thoughts on that, or specifically lucid dreams, because I don't remember that in any of Jung's writings, but there might be something I missed.
Yeah. Honoring a dream is a common practice of those of us who dream a lot, and it can be done in so many different ways. Some people, a lot of us, it starts with writing down the dream often. But there's some people are more artistic. They'll create something. They'll draw it or paint it or sculpt it or whatever. Other times it's just a practice. Like I've had dreams where they've been very positive, where I was just going for a walk in the dream and realized I literally need to just get out and go for a walk to become a little bit more mindful or to deal with stress. Um, and sometimes it takes multiple dreams to figure it out, or even much longer than that. Like some of these archetypal level dreams are the ones that tend to feel like they're bigger than me personally.
Yeah.
And so it's not always something that I'm trying to figure it out. It's more of living the experience and just being open to the whole mystery of it. Um, Especially when I get to those deep level ones like that. And most of the answers that I do come up with when I really feel like I've connected are very simple anyway.
Yeah. So I love the way you just said you're bigger than me personally. And is there a sense that this is sort of how sort of that almost like it's not so much our dreams, but we're portals to the mystery to come in, whether you want to call it animism, spirits, people, different cultures have called it different things throughout the ages, but it's not a me. It's tapping into, um, you know, the mystery.
Yeah, exactly. I think my best example, and really kind of what set me on a life course with this was about 17 years old. I had a spontaneous lucid dream where I just walk into this empty room, and there's one window, and I look out the window, and there's just large open meadow and a single full tree in the meadow, and I'm able to see the tree very clearly, and I notice that every leaf on the tree is glowing with its own light. And then I'm able to like zoom in on them, and I can see all the fine little details and veins of the leaves, and I see the whole tree. And I woke up realizing that every single leaf on this tree is alive, but so is the entire tree as a whole. And that's kind of how I've seen the world ever since, is we're all sort of leaves on the same tree. So we're all individual, but yet we're all part of this collective simultaneously. It's not one or the other, it's both simultaneously. And and so that's kind of like that collective unconscious that Jung talked about, that there is a level at which we are all the same. It's like we're all consciousness experiencing the universe in our own way, in our own individual ways.
Yeah. So, uh, what do you think? I mean, this is, but um, so do you think that like dreams, that like consciousness has different spectrums, and one of the spectrums is the dream spectrum? Another one's a lucid dream, and then another one is like day to day consciousness, and it's just sort of like all the same sort of thing? Or do you think there's something special about the dreaming experience that sets it apart from, whatever the consciousness is, the ego tunnel, so to speak?
Yeah,
Or you think it's all the
I think just like everything else, that that consciousness is fractal and that it's never ending in all directions. It's we have many different layers of dreaming, and even lucid dream. There's many layers of lucid dreaming. There are those lucid dreams where I'm aware that I'm dreaming, but I'll still try to convince the other characters that they're dreaming too. And then there's others that I'm fully aware that everything in this dream is a projection of me, and the whole thing's a dream. Or in waking life, you can be, we're all over the place. There are times where you're very focused on things, but we could also have those times where you're driving to work or whatever, and you get where you're going, but you don't really remember the drive. So what part of you actually did the drive was doing the steering of the car and the pressing on the gas pedal when you weren't consciously doing that. So that's more of a hypnotic state of mind. And I wouldn't say that any one is better than other. I think they all have purpose and reason for them. I think we may have more access. It's kind of like the electromagnetic spectrum. Like one level of energy isn't necessarily better than another, but they all have different uses or purposes or advantages. And so it's more of a matter of learning to do that. I don't know that it does a lot of good to get really good at lucid dreaming if you're not becoming a more aware while you're awake too. So I think it runs the whole board there.
Yeah. Do you have a sense almost that, um, I've been noticing this more in the last couple of years, that when I get in sort of like it's a hypnagogic state, when I'm sort of, in between sort of waking and this, that sometimes, and especially at night, I can like develop like a level of consciousness where then I remember like all these other dreams I've had in the past. And it's like, oh, I remember that one. I remember that one. I remember that one. And then they all get kind of connected. And to me, that's been just like, it almost like, to preface this, I asked the question about, do you think dreams are the same spectrum as consciousness, just, different, but almost that like the dream world is has all these different facets, and somebody was saying, well, that's like parallel realities, parallel lives, and all this. I mean, I it's sort of disconcerting that that when I get in this state and kind of go into it, um and to see it kind of opening up, that like, well, I've had so many dreams in the past that I haven't remembered, but they're all there, and they could be parallel lives. I don't, but maybe that's not even the way to look at it. Just parallel frequencies or something. I don't know. I mean, do you have any, did that at all make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think like every experience we have is there somewhere, and there's access to it, whether you're consciously aware of it in the moment or not. And that hypnagogic state is certainly one of them. That all kinds of interesting things can happen. A lot of people, that's a place where geometry is very common, where people see grids and hives and webs and things like that are very common. And you talk about like connecting all these dreams. It brings up an interesting point where, of course, I've noticed, many of my dreams connect to each other, and I think everybody's do. But these lucid dreams seem to have. Sometimes I can find bigger connections, and they could be years apart. But it's almost like if you imagine it as the tree, that these lucid dreams might be the larger branches of the tree, and the other dreams are sort of like the sub branches, and they all connect, but maybe some of the more aware parts tend to be the bigger branches. And you mentioned too, like, simultaneous lives and things like that. The interesting thing is I have experienced simultaneous dreams, and come to realize that it's actually really common to be um, dreams don't necessarily run linear. We might remember them that way, but I often realize that I've had different scenes that really all happened at the same time. And a simple way to look at this is, if you've ever had a dream where you're retelling the dream, and you say, well, I was talking to my friend, or maybe that was my brother. The answer is it's both. They both happen, but in your waking mind, you can only imagine it as one or the other. But in the dream, it literally can be both at the same time. So as you have more dreams and get deeper into it, and lucid dreaming, you often will notice that. And a lot of my dreams, when I write them down, I'll mention simultaneous scene, or this may have been simultaneous, because I am unsure of the order, which tends to make me think, oh, these things probably happened at the same time.
Yeah. Um, so I wanted to share a quote with you, and just to get your reaction from it. And this is a quote from Dr. Alan Hobson, who's he's a psychiatrist at the Harvard Medical School, and he founded the Laboratory of Neurophysiology in order to study the brain basis of dreaming. So this is like um, hardcore biology, and so he's asked a question in this interview: what exactly is so special about consciousness in the dream state compared to consciousness in the wakefulness or non-REM state? So here's the Harvard psychiatrist, and said, dream consciousness is more intense, more single-minded, more elaborate, and more bizarre than consciousness in waking. Hence, it can reasonably be viewed as the most auto-creative state of the brain mind. It is also the most psychosis-like state of normal consciousness. Because its neurobiology is so well known, its study offers us a unique scientific opportunity to understand ourselves better in both health and disease.
That's a good quote, and I mean, I think that's true. I mean, the thing about the dream state is we don't have all the external stimulus for one thing, so everything really is coming from your own consciousness, right? Like the entire scene, every person, every object, every animal in the dream, including even the body we occupy in a dream, it was created out of our own consciousness somehow. And so it gives a certain access, and also um, the idea that in a dream, our defenses are down. All these defense mechanisms. It's like we're shown very directly things, that we kind of BS ourselves about in waking life. That the dream doesn't do that. Um, it's like it kind of breaks through those barriers. Now, we may or may not see it, but I do think it's the most direct access we have to be able to get to those certain levels of consciousness where we can make changes or improvements to ourselves if we're willing to do it. Now, you can bring a lot of ego into the dream state too, including into lucid dreams. I've had lucid dreams where I've been like, oh, I'm going to, like, if you had a lucid dream where I'm going to go and I'm going to try to, beat up this character that's bullying me, you might find that the character hits you back, because you're bringing your ego into it. Whereas I found, and I think a lot of dreamers would say this, that if you realize you're dreaming and you realize, oh, this is an aspect of me, what might it want? And I ask it, or I've even had cases where I've gone up and given the monster a hug or whatever, and it completely changes form. So a lot of it's what we do with it. And to me, the biggest part of it is how much awareness do you take into the state of consciousness you're in rather than what state of consciousness am I in? Because sometimes that's not even in our control. I mean, we're going to sleep, we're going to wake up, we may or may not have a lucid dream, but the part we do have control with is how aware can I choose to be in this moment?
Yeah. Another, running through your book is sort of how different cultures throughout history have treated dreams. And do you want to share any of those insights or anything that like jumps to mind? I mean, my favorite, I'm sort of into Native American views, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that about anything. Just back on the subject about that dreams are bigger than us personally. I think
Oh,
that there's
yeah.
been a better appreciation of that throughout history than maybe recently.
Yeah, then that's a good example in Native American culture and in many indigenous cultures where, people would talk about their dreams much more than we do here in Western culture today. It was just a normal thing people did, and they would take the dreams as a community. If somebody dreamt something, they might see this as a message, not just for the individual, but for that benefits the entire tribe. Um, and I think that's been common in many places around the world historically. With indigenous cultures, and in other types of cultures, you've seen it where they've still done things with them, like the Asclepian temples in ancient Greece, where they realized they might be able to be used for healing, even physical healing. Um, it just seems like something that, for whatever reason, in Western culture, we seem to value the waking state much more, and also to think of ourselves as much more individuals rather than as a tribe or community. And I think that has a lot to do with why we don't talk about it as much, or you're looked at as a little bit weird if you do. But historically, that wasn't the case, and especially in these smaller communities.
Yeah. They. I'm still thinking of your tree image. That's great. I mean, that would be. I'm sure there were a lot of uh, that would resonate. That trunks of a tree. Um, um, do you like dream incubation practices in the ancient Greeks and caves, and there's all kinds of interesting stuff. Um,
Yeah, the dream incubation is something that I think it's just a great idea. Like if you've got something weighing on your mind, um, it's a good idea to do that and just listen, and completely with an open mind too, because the answers you get are rarely the ones you think, if ever. Um, but if I'm if you incubate a dream, and then I remember a dream, I'm pretty sure that there's something in that. Like it heard the incubation. It's like the more you work with your dreams, the more they'll work with you back. And you may not get it on day one, but if you stick with it, you'll get something. And it is really interesting. Like I'll give you a good example from just this week. Um, I've had been dealing with some personal family health issues and things that were weighing kind of heavily on my mind. And I'd walked by a picture of my father-in-law who passed away just a few months ago, and I just kind of had this fleeting thought as I walked past this photo of, hey, if you've got any help or advice, I could sure use it. And it was sort of an unintentional dream incubation. And one thing to know about my father-in-law, he was a big Beatles fan. And just before waking up in the morning, I had this dream where I'm hearing "Let It Be" playing very clearly in my dream before waking up, and it's like, oh, well, there it is. There's the answer I needed in that moment.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so. Do you have any other intentional work that you do before you fall asleep that sort of cultivates the experience or connects to it?
Um, yeah, I mean, in general, I go in each night just sort of intending to remember my dreams. They kind of come naturally to me, but like anybody, if I just were to, not make any effort, I think that would appear in my dream recall frequency. And then, of course, when I wake up, I tend to jot down notes, not necessarily the whole dream. I usually write it out later when I have more time. Um, but I have a tendency to remember them hours later, even if I don't. But a lot of people will lose them, so that's a good idea. And then I do just kind of go through different methods. I don't have any one method that I'll use all the time. It's like there's so many great methods of working with dreams that I try them all. Like sometimes I'm trying to do more of an interpretation. Other times I'm not trying to interpret the dream. I'm just trying to honor the dream in some way, or um, whether it's to act out something from the dream or just to do something small from the dream. I think that's one of the more effective and simple things that people can do is, even if you don't know what the dream means, I don't know that you always have to. Like, just like that whole working with the dream, it'll work with you back. Like, realize this isn't a one night deal. Like, think of almost your dreaming mind as like a friend, and you're just getting into a conversation. And,
Yeah,
it speaks in a much more metaphoric language. So like, for example, if I, hear music, which I often do, maybe I'll listen to that song the next day. If I seem to be walking in nature in the dream, maybe I'll go for a walk, outside in nature, um, or sometimes it's something very simple, like if I'm decluttering in some way in a dream, find something literally to declutter out of my house the next day. So that's one of the simple methods. I mean, sometimes I get much more intense or much deeper if there's something, I'm really working with, um, whether it's a project, like even writing the book. I mean, I'm having dreams that are helping me in the process of writing the book. Um, because that's just what comes up because that's the project I'm working on. So,
yeah. What would you say would be how do you would envision somebody, a reader, using the book? This Odyssey that you've been on, and it's almost like I almost get the impression that this is like just to give, just to allow the dreamer to dip their toe in the water and just see that like there's a whole ocean out there, and you sort of talk about all different types of experience, so that there's bound to be something that in the book that somebody's going to resonate with and pique their interest, but it's you cover just such a wide spectrum of of different dream manifestations or connections. It's really interesting. Well, like you said, it's a big tree with a lot of branches.
Yeah, and I think kind of the idea is if you look through these universal themes or archetypes or however you want to label them, that they're not just in dreams, they're in all these stories, whether they're ancient myths or these modern movies. And if you can understand that our dreams follow the same pattern, um, and what these some of these patterns are, like I definitely recommend that people learn something of the basics about what the hero's journey is about. And you'll find that like the major arcana of the tarot follow the same, hero's journey as well. That if you can recognize that these are all common, universal human experiences, even though they manifest in very personal ways, you'll see that um, the story of Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz has got a lot of commonality with the, like I said, the Karate Kid or the Matrix or whatever it is. Like you've got like the benevolent, mentor figure. You've got the the call. Do you answer the call? Do you refuse
Yeah.
the call? There's the crossing of the threshold. All these things that are very common themes that if you can see them, like even in waking life, you'll start to realize that you're seeing this in different movies. It's like, oh, okay. When you start to recognize it as you're watching these movies or reading these books, you start to see it in your dreams too. That okay, so this is a theme that's telling me something. I mentioned one of my early ones in the book was like I had this dream where I'm lucid and I'm flying and it's pleasant, but I'm bored. And I'm like questioning like the whole universe is open to me here. Like, why am I bored when I got the whole universe open to me? And looking back at it, I was able to see, oh, this is like the ordinary world phase of the hero's journey. This is before the adventure starts, where everything is kind of fine. It's your normal daily life, but there's an adventure out there waiting, and I just hadn't quite got there yet. And now, it took until after I saw how that played out for me to put that together, that I had a lot of changes in my life that followed that. And this was a dream that was just sort of telling me, here's where I'm at right now. But you have to really look at these over time to kind of see those different stages. But sometimes you can see them along the way. Or another example might be like with the tarot. Like I use an example of a tower in the dream, and by recognizing that symbolism, I could look and say, well, what does the tower in the tarot mean? And you can start to maybe get some ideas of what that dream might mean as well.
Yeah. Shaking things up.
Exactly.
So you I know you mentioned the Matrix. Are you a red pill or a blue pill guy? And how is that in relation to what do you think that the dream experience is?
Well, I think ultimately we all take the the pill that sends us on the adventure, but well, maybe we don't always. Like ultimately, the choice is ours. But like once the adventure seems to be presented, it's almost like something is coming into consciousness. And when things first come into consciousness, we have a tendency to be resistant to it. But eventually we don't, and we follow through on what that is. And I think that there's many of them that happen simultaneously. It's not like we're just on this one adventure in life, right? We have many things happening at once. So you can have these little adventures and these giant adventures all at the same time, right up to our whole life being an adventure is sort of the big one. But the little adventure might just be something small that happens today. And so you could have all these, lists like the simultaneous dreams. We're having simultaneous heroes' journeys.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned mentors, and I that's sort of like in your book, you have these figures that pop up that provide you guidance. Um, and so that's an interesting question for me because I generally don't have that. And then, and then I'll go, well, it's because they're all tricksters. And then I'm like, do I really want somebody telling me what to do? No. But, I mean, it's like, so it's like, this is, this is the dream, that like, there's not Gandalf is not there or Neo or is it, which is, what's is in Matrix? Is it Neo? No,
Oh, here's
Neo
some
is
more Morpheus.
Morpheus.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't, you
yeah.
know, I wouldn't trust Morpheus to give me. I think he did something with those pills.
Yeah, well, in most dreams, I think that these mentors show up much more subtly. Like they could just be you're dreaming of you're at a store and it's the person behind the counter or behind the bar or whatever that has that one little minor piece of advice that somehow matches your situation. So it doesn't always have to be something profound. And although I do tend to pay more attention when they do. Like in the book, I mentioned one of my most intense ones was I had been doing like this. I refer to as a deep dive, where I was writing down every piece of dream material that I could remember, and I did this for 8 straight months, and just kind of figuring, well, I'd stop on a night that I didn't remember anything. It never happened. After 8 months, it's remembering close to four detailed dreams per night. I finally kind of decided it's time to stop. But when I was months into this, I had this lengthy dream, and the whole last several minutes were lucid, and I ended up in this cave that was very deep underwater, and there's this book on a bench, and I go to the book and open it up to where there's a bookmark, and there's this three-dimensional holographic Native American man, like an ancient Native American man there, and
Wow.
and he is I can see he starts to talk to me, but I can't hear him. So I kind of make one of these motions by my ear, just to let him know I can't hear you. And then suddenly there's one ear pod in one of my ears and one in his, and now I'm hearing him clearly, and much the same way we're talking now. and
Yeah.
He starts telling me these things about that are so simple, but they're things that I wouldn't have worded it this way myself. He said to me, the kingdom of heaven is here, and simultaneously I heard the kingdom of heaven is now. And he told me to just do the next thing in front of me every day, and everything will be fine, and that it's all in balance.
Wow.
And it's interesting is that like I try to be like, well, like really respectful, almost like bowing to the guy, and he's like chuckling a little bit, like he's saying, like, "Hey, like it's okay to lighten up here too." Like he's very wise, but like still has a sense of humor. And but I woke up from that dream, and that's one of them. That this has been a few years ago now, and that's one of them that just I still remember it a lot. Like those really intense double dreams, like the Tree of Life dream I had, are some that just stay with me, and it's like there's something I can always refer back to, like even in tough times, like just what was I told? Like I believe that to be true. It's coming from something far deeper than my conscious experience.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a wonderful gift. Yeah. Yeah. That was. I was trying to think if I've had anything like that. I remember I had well, I don't want to talk about it. I've had some dreams that. Well, what do you think about precognitive dreams? Have you had any
Oh
experience
yeah,
with those?
lots of them, and
Yeah.
most of them. I mean, they're constant, and I think a lot of people have these. From what I've learned, just in the dream community, like it's super common. But a lot of it for me has been what seems to be random stuff. I'll dream of like, I don't know, let's just say I saw like an orange car, and then suddenly there's this orange car that shows up the next day or whatever. It's like, I don't know what it means other than maybe I'm where I'm supposed to be. But other times they have been a little bit more intense, not commonly, but one of them that stands out to me was many years ago. I'm in Minneapolis, and the night before uh, the the bridge collapsed in Minneapolis, probably I don't know what it was, 15 or 20 years ago, the one that fell into the Mississippi River. I had a dream the night before where I'm in a duck and cover position underneath a bridge.
Yeah.
So it didn't feel like there's anything I could have done about it. In much the same way as like all the accounts of people who dreamed about 9/11, before
Yeah.
it happened,
Yeah.
that probably couldn't have done anything about it. Um, One of my more interesting ones was I'm a longtime member of the International Association for the Study of Dreams, and every year at their annual conference, they do a dream telepathy contest where there's like a sender who looks at these different images and then like, sort of meditates and tries to send out the image, and then, take note of our dreams the next day and submit them and see whose dream comes closest to that image, right? And this is maybe a little more clairvoyance than telepathy, than precognitive. I think it's a little of both. Well, I had this dream, where I became lucid that night of the dream telepathy contest, and I remembered, oh, this is that night. So I asked the dream to show me the image from the dream telepathy contest, and I ended up, seeing this scene where I'm in this room that has a lot of blue, and there's these curtains, and I look outside, and there's these train tracks nearby, and there's this construction equipment. And I just so I wrote down this dream and described it in all the detail I could. Well, as it turns out, my dream was not even remotely close to the photo that the dreamer had chosen for that night. But I won what was called the Right Wrong Award, which means that I kind of accurately described the scene that the dreamer was physically actually in at the time that she was sending out this
Yeah.
image. So it's interesting how they come through. It's like sometimes I'm just a little off. It's like I had a dream many years ago, a lucid dream, where I saw headlines that the Rams won the Super Bowl, and it had the year and the date on it. And it turns out this was like 20 years later. The Rams did win the Super Bowl. I was off by 1 year. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that means anything or not, but so I've had a lot of precognitive dreams, but I can't necessarily say that I know why, other than just that it's a connection to something different or beyond my waking consciousness, and that universal level of consciousness does seem to be not just about space but time. Like you can connect to ancient wisdom, right now, if you kind of get through those deeper levels, deeper into the cave, as Jung might have said.
Yeah. Sometimes I think, and this is a little bit something you just said reminded me of this, that I've had an experience in a dream where I thought that I was a voice in somebody else's consciousness who was awake. And I remember the dream was I was talking with a woman who was in like some sort of Latin American country, and I was reassuring her almost, and it was my dream. But when I woke, I was wondering, maybe and goes back to the collective unconsciousness,
Mm-hmm.
that I am, when we're dreaming, because we're all interconnected in some way that, above my pay grade, obviously, but when we're dreaming, we're connecting to other people in a way that could be like I'm the voice inside somebody else's head when they're awake. I don't know. That's kind of
Yeah,
it's
I
kind of
mean,
trippy, but I thought it was in a kind of a way that's kind of beautiful too, and interconnected. That if we could be that like somebody else is dreaming me right now.
oh,
I I
absolutely.
I've had that dream where somebody else is. I'm in somebody else is dreaming right now my consciousness, and I'm just sort of this vessel thing.
Oh, absolutely. I have had lucid dreams where I have been assured by the other characters that I am a character in their dream. And then I had another one where I'm just floating through the void at like seemingly a high rate of speed. And I heard this voice said to me, "What if I told you that you don't really exist?" And, and I've come to kind of accept that, like that I am, like we all are, like, if this is it's all a dream, so, even though like I have these dreams at night, but there is another level of consciousness that is dreaming me in all of this now, and that's essentially what reality is. It's just different levels of consciousness and that fractal, you know, um, eternal universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
just kind of going from dream to dream. Life is but a dream, right?
Yeah. Merrily, 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 merrily. Just rowing our boats.
Yep. I think it was Edgar Allan Poe had said that life is a dream within a dream within a dream.
Yeah. Turtles all the way down.
Yeah.
And turtles all the way up too.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Well, Dave, it's been a wonderful conversation. I should let understand. You've got a family, right? You got
I
young kids, right? Or,
no, I have adult kids and one. Well, one that's just had a birthday yesterday is 29, and I've got some others that are mid 20s. I've got
oh,
even three grandkids, and
oh my goodness!
my grandkids are young.
Wow,
um,
you must have gotten started younger than me. My daughters are 25, but you're obviously younger than me. So wow, many
yeah, I mean,
blessings. Yeah, yeah.
maybe not as young as you think, but I appreciate it.
Well, where can people get a hold of this book if they want to dip their toes into this Odyssey?
Yeah, well, of course, it's on Amazon, and I you can find I have two different Instagram pages. One of them is boundless_dream, and the other is the Lucid Explorer.
Yeah.
And you'll find some information about the book on both of those and links. Um, or if you just feel like contacting me, I'm at boundlessdreaming@gmail.com.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I follow both those accounts on Instagram. So I've been seeing your stuff for a while, but no, it's wonderful. And anything else that you'd like to share about your Odyssey?
Well, it's ever ongoing. I mean, I'm always interested to see what comes next. I look forward to these dreams every night, whether they're seem positive or not. I love every one of them. It's like these adventures that I go on, and um, to me, it feels like I'd be missing out on a significant portion of my life by not paying attention to them and not participating with them. We're asleep, roughly a third of our lives, and there's so much content in there and so much we can learn about ourselves.
Yeah.
So I'm just interested to see that, and I definitely appreciate speaking with you in the interview and your podcast.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And it's wonderful to have somebody dream us both into existence and experience this.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Michael.